Excuses are cheap, but they're very expensive to your future. They cost you your freedom, your wealth, and in many cases, your destiny. You see, life will hand you two choices every single day: to build assets or to build excuses. One puts you on the path of freedom, the other keeps you chained to survival. Most people spend their whole lives perfecting the art of excuses while wondering why wealth and success seem so far away. But let me tell you something. Money doesn't respond to excuses. It responds to discipline, vision, and action. If you're willing to stop renting your future to excuses and start owning it with assets, you can design a life most people only dream about. Most people spend their lives waiting for wealth to arrive, but wealth doesn't knock on doors. It's built brick by brick with assets, not excuses. You can't buy freedom with reasons. You can only buy it with results. Excuses will keep you working for wages. Assets will keep you living in freedom. The truth is simple. Every excuse you make today is stealing from the rich life you could have tomorrow. So the question is, are you building assets or are you building excuses? Let me tell you something I learned early on. Excuses don't pay bills. They never have, and they never will. Excuses are free. They cost nothing to make, but they can cost you everything if you live by them. You can hand the landlord your excuse, and he'll still ask for the rent. You can give the bank your excuse, and they'll still want the payment. The truth is, the marketplace isn't interested in your reasons. It's interested in your results. And those results don't come from excuses. They come from building assets, from creating value that outlasts the reasons you couldn't, wouldn't, or didn't. I used to have a long list of excuses myself. I'd say things like, I didn't grow up in the right family, or if only the government would fix this or that, or I don't have the money to get started. I told myself these stories, and for a while, they felt good, they gave me comfort. But excuses are like a warm blanket in the winter. They may keep you comfortable, but they'll keep you stuck in the cold. One day, I had to face the truth. Excuses wouldn't feed me, they wouldn't clothe me, and they certainly wouldn't build my future. Responsibility would. Now, responsibility is heavy at first. It feels like a burden. But if you take responsibility for your life, your income, your results, that weight turns into power. Because once you accept that your excuses don't matter, you start asking the right questions. Instead of why can't I, you start asking, how can I? That shift alone can change everything. The difference between the man with excuses and the man with results is not opportunity, it's ownership. So how do you make that shift? You begin by identifying the excuses you've been leaning on. Maybe you've said, I don't have the time. But look closer. How many hours are lost in front of the television, or scrolling, or doing what doesn't matter? Time isn't the issue. Priorities are. Maybe you've said, I don't have the money. But money flows toward discipline, and even if it's only $10 a week, the act of investing creates a seed. Or maybe you've said, I don't know where to start. That's the easiest one to fix, because information has never been more available. You don't need to know everything, you just need to start somewhere. Here's what I recommend you do. Write down your top 3 financial excuses. Put them on paper where you can see them. Then, next to each one, write an actionable commitment to replace it. If your excuse is no time, write down a commitment. I will dedicate 1 hour a day to building a new skill or income stream. If your excuse is no money, write, I will save and invest 10% of every dollar I earn. If your excuse is no knowledge, write, I will read 1 wealth-building book every month. That little exercise takes away the hiding place. Excuses lose their power when they're exposed, and responsibility gains its strength when it's written down. Excuses are free, but freedom is not. It is earned through responsibility, discipline, and assets. There's nothing wrong with wages. They feed you. They keep the lights on. They pay the rent. A paycheck is what puts food on the table. But let me tell you something. Wages will never set you free. Wages were designed for survival, but assets were designed for freedom. If you depend on wages alone, you'll always be tied to the clock. You'll always have to ask, how many hours do I need to trade this week to cover my needs? And that's fine for a season, but if you stay there forever, you're stuck. The real breakthrough comes when you understand that wages should be your servant, not your master. When I started out, I was broke. I had wages, but I had nothing else. I worked harder, and sure, I earned more. But no matter how much more I earned, I still found myself with more bills, more needs, and still no freedom. That's when I realized the truth. Wages are temporary, but assets last. The rich don't rely on wages, they rely on ownership. The farmer doesn't just eat his crops, he saves seed for planting. Your wages are the seed, but if you consume all of them, you'll never have a harvest. So, what's the strategy? Simple. Stop seeing wages as the finish line and start seeing them as the starting line. Every paycheck you receive isn't just a chance to spend, it's a chance to invest. You don't have to start big. If all you can set aside is 15% of your income, do that. 20% is better. Redirect it towards something that grows. Stocks, real estate, business ventures. If you don't have much, start with what you have. You'll be amazed how quickly consistency builds momentum. Let me give you a picture. Imagine you earn $3,000 a month. If you take $450 of that, just 15%, and invest it monthly, over time, compounding begins to work for you. That money begins to earn money. And when your money earns money, that's when freedom begins. Because the day will come when your assets produce more than your wages. That's the day you get to choose. Work because you want to, not because you have to. I'll never forget the first time my investments produced enough to cover my rent. That small victory changed my thinking forever. It wasn't about being rich overnight. It was about progress, about gaining back pieces of my freedom one bill at a time. First the rent, then the car payment, then, eventually, the whole lifestyle. And all of it started with one simple decision: to stop consuming every paycheck and start planting some of it into assets. Here's the practical step I want you to take. Look at your next paycheck and set aside 15 to 20% before you pay a single bill. Don't wait to see what's left at the end of the month, because there will be nothing left. Pay yourself first and pay your future first. That's the discipline that turns wages into freedom. Because wages will feed you, but only assets will set you free. A paycheck is a wonderful thing. It keeps the pantry full, pays the landlord, puts gas in the car. Wages will feed you, no doubt about it. But here's the challenge. Wages were designed to cover survival, not to buy you freedom. Wages are short-term. They are earned only as long as you show up, and they stop the very day you stop working. Assets, on the other hand, are different. Assets buy you choices. Assets give you time. Assets keep paying you whether you get out of bed or not. That's the fundamental difference. Wages feed you, but assets free you. Early in my career, I made the mistake of thinking if I just worked harder, everything would eventually change. I thought if I put in more hours, took on more jobs, earned a little more, my financial problems would vanish. But they didn't. They only grew. Because no matter how much more I earned, I was still trading my hours for dollars, and at the end of the day, I was still stuck in the same system. That's when I learned an important lesson. Working harder on wages only gives you more bills, but working smarter with wages creates freedom. The strategy is this. Treat your wages not as a destination, but as a tool, a stepping stone, a seed. Farmers don't eat all their seed, they plant a portion for the future. If you consume every paycheck, you're robbing yourself of tomorrow's harvest. Instead, commit to redirecting a percentage of your wages every month into something that grows, something that produces beyond your effort. That might be stocks, real estate, or a business venture. The actual vehicle doesn't matter nearly as much as the discipline to set money aside and make it work for you. I once coached a young man who told me, "I'll start investing when I have more money." I said, "No, you'll have more money when you start investing." It's not about the amount, it's about the principle. Start with what you have and let consistency work its magic. Even 15% of your wages, faithfully redirected month after month, will eventually transform into something substantial. Let's make it practical. If you earn $4,000 a month, set aside $600 to $800, 15 to 20%. Automate it so it happens before you even see it. Send it directly into an investment account or fund a small business venture. If you delay, if you wait for the perfect time, you'll find there's never a perfect time. The bills will always be there. The emergencies will always pop up. That's life. But if you make this one discipline non-negotiable, one day your assets will be paying your bills and your wages will be optional. The greatest freedom is when you can say, "I work because I choose to, not because I must." And the path to that freedom is simple but demanding. Use your wages to feed you today, but let your assets free you tomorrow. Most people live their whole lives thinking in terms of addition. They add more hours, add another job, add more hustle. And while addition can keep you busy, it rarely makes you wealthy. Wealth is not about adding, it's about multiplying. True financial freedom begins the day you stop asking, "How can I work more?" and start asking, "How can I make what I already do produce more?" When I was younger, I believed if I could just add enough hours, I'd eventually get ahead. But the truth is, you run out of hours long before you run out of bills. There are only so many hours in a day, only so much energy in your body. Addition has limits, but multiplication has no ceiling. Multiplication comes when you build systems, when you acquire assets, when you create something that continues to deliver value far beyond your individual effort. Think of it like this. A farmer doesn't go into the field to plant one seed at a time every day, hoping for survival. He plants one crop and lets nature multiply it into a harvest. One seed has the power to produce hundreds of more seeds. That's the philosophy of wealth. Leverage, scale, multiplication. And yet, too many are stuck carrying buckets of water instead of building pipelines. Carrying buckets pays you today, but building pipelines pays you forever. The strategy is simple but powerful. Build something that grows beyond you. That could mean a business system that runs without you needing to be in the room, or an investment portfolio that compounds over time. Maybe it's a digital product that sells while you sleep. Whatever form it takes, the key is this: the system multiplies the value, not just your added hours. I remember a man who once told me, "I'll just keep working 2 jobs until I get ahead." I had to be honest with him. I said, "Friend, you'll wear yourself out before you ever build yourself up. Working harder only gets you more tired. Working smarter creates multiplication. You can add more hours, but eventually you'll break. But if you build multiplication into your wealth plan, your assets keep working even when you don't." Here's the practical step. Take one income stream you already have and brainstorm how to multiply it without trading more hours. If you're employed, could you build a skill that earns you royalties or create intellectual property? If you're in business, could you delegate, automate, or replicate your systems so they reach 10 times the people? If you invest, could you reinvest dividends so your money produces more money? The secret is to shift your thinking from how can I add to how can I multiply? Remember, wealth isn't about how hard you work. It's about how effectively you leverage. When you build systems and assets that scale beyond your personal effort, you step into a world where multiplication works for you, not just addition. And that's when wealth begins to feel inevitable. Most people spend their energy chasing money, but very few spend time protecting it. And that's a mistake, because building wealth is only half the game. Keeping it is the other half. You can work 20 years building, but if you don't protect it, a single storm can wash it all away. It's like constructing a beautiful home with no roof. One heavy rain, and all that hard work is gone. Wealth without protection is fragile, and fragile wealth never lasts. When I first started earning money, I was so excited about growth that I didn't even think about loss. My mind was fixed on expansion, not defense. But the reality is, life doesn't always ask permission before it tests you. Accidents happen, markets crash, opportunities fail, and sometimes people make mistakes. If you haven't taken steps to protect what you've built, you can find yourself back at zero. That's why the wise don't just think about how to create wealth, they think about how to shield it. Think of it like a castle. You don't just build the towers, you also dig the moat, raise the walls, and set up guards at the gate. Because the stronger your defenses, the safer the treasure. Protecting wealth doesn't mean living in fear. It means having the wisdom to anticipate risks and put safeguards in place. That way, no matter what comes, your foundation remains intact. The strategy is clear. Diversify, insure, and structure your wealth properly. Diversification ensures that if one stream dries up, others continue to flow. Insurance covers the unexpected, a medical emergency, an accident, or an untimely event that could drain your finances. And proper structures, like trusts, wills, and legal protections, keep your wealth safe from unnecessary losses or mismanagement. It's not glamorous work, but it's necessary work. Too many people are quick to chase shiny investments, but they never slow down to cover the basics of protection. And that's where the cracks show. I once knew a man who worked tirelessly to build his business. He poured in years of effort, sacrifice, and long nights, but one lawsuit he hadn't prepared for wiped out half of what he built. Not because he didn't work hard, not because he wasn't smart, but because he neglected protection. Don't let that be your story. Building without protecting is like filling a bucket full of holes. You'll never hold on to what you've earned if you don't patch the leaks. So here's the practical step. Schedule one day this month to review your risk management, insurance, and legal protections. Sit down and ask, if something happened tomorrow, is my wealth protected? Is my family protected? Is my future protected? Because once you set these protections in place, you don't just build wealth, you secure it. And when you secure it, you create something that lasts beyond good luck, beyond circumstances, and beyond time. Wealth that is both built and protected is wealth that endures, and that's the only kind worth striving for. Time is the one currency you and I can never replenish. Lose money, and with discipline, effort, and creativity, you can earn it back. Lose time, and it's gone forever. That's why time is the richest currency, and how you spend it determines the kind of wealth you create. Some people treat time casually, as if there's an endless supply. But the truth is, every tick of the clock is a silent withdrawal from your life account. If you don't learn to use it wisely, no amount of money will ever compensate for what you've lost. When I first began my journey, I was like many others, busy, but not always productive. I thought hard work meant long hours, but I didn't realize how much time I was wasting on things that produced no return. The television was one culprit. Endless hours of entertainment, none of it feeding my mind, none of it strengthening my financial future. One day I asked myself, what if I redirected even a fraction of that wasted time into learning, building, and creating? That single shift in awareness completely changed the trajectory of my life. You see, the strategy is simple. Direct your time toward activities that compound in value. Learning expands your mind and opens doors to opportunities. Creating produces assets that can outlive your daily effort. Building systems, businesses, and investments ensures that your hours today become seeds for tomorrow's harvest. But consumption, distraction, and idleness eat away at time, leaving you with nothing to show for it. Every hour you spend should either bring you joy, expand your knowledge, or move you closer to freedom. Think about this. A man who spends 1 hour each day learning about investments will, in a year, have accumulated 365 hours of knowledge. That's equivalent to nearly 9 full work weeks of self-education. Compare that with someone who spends those same hours scrolling aimlessly or watching shows. At the end of the year, one person has a foundation for wealth, while the other has nothing but lost time. Which person do you want to be? I often remind people that time is more valuable than money, because money can't buy more of it. If you waste it in your 20s and 30s, you may find yourself scrambling in your 50s and 60s. But if you invest time wisely when you're young, learning, building, and setting up assets, you can enjoy freedom while others are still working overtime to catch up. Here's a simple step you can take. Track 1 full week of your time. Write down exactly how you spend each hour. At the end of the week, evaluate. How much of it went into activities that built your future? How much of it was wasted? Then, reallocate even 2 or 3 wasted hours into asset building activities. Studying, creating, planning. You'll be amazed at how quickly small investments of time add up. Guard your time as if it were gold, because in truth, it's worth far more. Spend it wisely, and it will purchase the freedom and wealth you've been dreaming of. Fortune is not a lightning strike. It doesn't appear out of nowhere, and it rarely happens overnight. It grows like a tree, from a seed planted, nurtured, and watered consistently over time. That's why I always say, start small, but think big. The mistake many make is waiting until conditions are perfect, until they have a large sum of money, or until they feel ready. But if you wait for perfection, you'll be waiting forever. Wealth doesn't require the perfect moment. It requires the courage to start with what you already have. When I first began, I didn't have much. I didn't step into wealth with grand investments or huge ventures. My beginnings were humble. But I made a decision. I would start where I was, with what I had, and I would stay consistent. And that's what fortune respects. Consistency. People often underestimate the power of small beginnings because they're looking for the dramatic win, the quick leap to riches. But a fortune is often the result of small steps compounded over time, not one giant leap. The strategy is clear. Begin small and expand steadily. Maybe you can't buy a building today, but you can buy a single share of stock. Maybe you can't open a large company, but you can start a side hustle, a small service, or a digital product. Maybe you don't have the resources for multiple rental properties, but you can save for a down payment on your first. The point is not the size of the step, it's the direction. When you're consistent in the right direction, momentum does the heavy lifting over time. Think about it this way. If you invested just $500 a month into an index fund, you might shrug at the small start. But give it years, let compounding do its work, and you'll have a nest egg worth hundreds of thousands. What once looked insignificant turns into something life-changing. The wealthiest people didn't begin with millions. They began with habits, disciplined savings, reinvesting profits, and expanding slowly but surely. You see, the human mind likes to exaggerate the beginning. It says this is too small to matter. But that's the same mind that underestimates time. Small efforts done daily, weekly, monthly, accumulate into extraordinary results. A single seed in the ground doesn't look like much, but it holds the potential of a forest if nurtured. And wealth works the same way. Here's a simple step you can take right now. Choose one small project this month. Buy a single stock and begin learning the market. Launch a side hustle, even if it earns just a few dollars at first. Create digital content that has the potential to grow over time. Don't dismiss the smallness of the start. Celebrate it, because it's proof you've begun. The great fortunes of the future will belong to those who dared to start small today. One of the greatest discoveries you can make on the road to wealth is that you don't have to do everything by yourself. In fact, if you try, you'll always be limited by your own two hands and the hours in your day. Wealthy people understand something different. They understand leverage. Leverage is what expands your results beyond your personal effort. It's what allows one person to accomplish the work of 10 or even 100 without burning out. When I was younger, I thought success meant doing everything myself, being in control of every detail, making sure no one else could mess it up. But I quickly realized that mindset only kept me stuck. It wasn't until I began building systems and relying on others that my results multiplied. Wealth requires us to let go of the illusion that we must carry the entire load alone. The philosophy is simple. Wealthy people don't just work hard, they work smart. They use systems, teams, and tools. They delegate tasks that don't require their unique touch. They automate processes so that time and energy can be spent where it matters most. They scale efforts by building models that can operate without them. This is the difference between being self-employed and being truly free. The self-employed person owns a job. The wealthy person owns systems and assets that work, whether they're present or not. Think about a vending machine. It doesn't call in sick. It doesn't ask for a raise. It works while you sleep. That's leverage. Or consider automation. Setting up your savings to move into an investment account every month without you having to think about it. That's leverage too. Then there's delegation. Maybe you're good at creating, but terrible at bookkeeping. Hire someone for the books and free yourself to focus on creating value. The wealthy do this constantly. They ask, what is the highest value use of my time? And they delegate or automate the rest. The strategy for you is to identify areas where your time is being consumed, but your value isn't being multiplied. If you're doing repetitive tasks, emails, scheduling, bookkeeping, someone else or some tool can do them for you. If your income depends entirely on your direct labor, you need to create systems, digital products, rental income, teams that continue working without your daily presence. And here's a practical step you can take this very month. Automate one thing. It could be your savings. Set your bank to automatically move a portion of your paycheck into an investment account. It could be marketing. Schedule your posts and emails in advance using software. It could be lead generation. Set up a system that collects prospects even while you sleep. Small acts of automation build the muscle of leverage, and that muscle will carry you toward freedom. The truth is, your greatest wealth won't come from working harder, but from multiplying smarter. And leverage is the bridge between effort and abundance. When most people think about wealth, they picture a giant pile of money sitting in the bank, waiting to be spent. But here's the truth. That pile, no matter how large, eventually shrinks. Inflation eats away at it, emergencies drain it, and lifestyle temptations erode it faster than you'd imagine. Real wealth isn't about how much you can store, it's about how much continually flows to you without requiring your daily labor. That's why cash flow beats cash piles. Think of it like water. A stagnant pond eventually dries up, or worse, it becomes toxic. But a flowing river is alive, always renewing itself, always moving. That's the difference between sitting on a pile of money and having assets that generate income month after month. Wealth that flows sustains you. It gives you choices. It frees you from the pressure of wondering when the money will run out, because more is always on its way. In my own journey, I remember the early days when my entire focus was just on saving a little more from my paycheck. I thought if I could just build a big enough cushion, I'd be secure. But life has a way of testing that theory. Cars break down, opportunities come knocking, family needs arise, and that cushion disappears. It wasn't until I learned the philosophy of cash flow that things changed. Assets that paid me whether I worked or not gave me true freedom. The strategy is simple but profound. Stop chasing piles and start building streams. Every dollar you earn should have a job. And one of the best jobs you can give it is to go buy an asset that pays you back repeatedly. Rental property that provides monthly rent, dividend-paying stocks that reward you just for owning them, or a small business that generates ongoing income. These are the real foundations of wealth. Imagine waking up every month knowing money is flowing in from multiple sources. That's peace of mind. That's security. Now, here's the practical step you can take. Choose one cash-flowing asset to acquire this year. Don't wait until you feel ready, because perfection is the enemy of progress. If real estate interests you, start with a small rental or even partner with someone. If the stock market is your path, begin with dividend-paying companies. If entrepreneurship excites you, start a small side business that solves a real problem. The point isn't how big the first step is, the point is to get the flow started. Once you experience money arriving not from your labor but from your assets, your whole relationship with wealth changes. You no longer live in fear of running out. You live with the confidence that streams are flowing in, and the more streams you add, the stronger your river becomes. The real secret is this: piles disappear, but streams endure, and the wise always choose the flow. One of the greatest mistakes people make on their journey to financial freedom is thinking that wealth must be complicated. They assume it takes some secret formula, an advanced degree, or access to insider opportunities to get rich. But here's the truth: complexity confuses, simplicity compounds. The more complex you make the process, the more likely you are to get lost, distracted, or paralyzed by indecision. But when you keep things simple, clear principles, repeated consistently, you give yourself the gift of momentum. And momentum, once it starts rolling, is almost impossible to stop. When I first began my journey, I was guilty of chasing complexity. Someone would pitch me a new idea, and I'd run after it. Another person would swear by a different opportunity, and I'd rush to learn that too. I thought that the wealthiest people must have the most complicated systems. But over time I learned that the people who truly built lasting wealth were the ones who practiced simplicity. They found a few proven strategies, like saving consistently, investing in assets, avoiding unnecessary debt, and reinvesting returns, and they stuck with them for decades. No magic, no constant chasing of shiny objects, just simple, steady disciplines. The strategy is this: strip away the noise and focus on what works. Instead of dabbling in 10 different opportunities halfway, go deep on the few that have been proven to produce results. Compound interest doesn't require genius, it requires discipline. Rental income doesn't need to be flashy, it just needs to be steady. Businesses don't grow because you chase every new trend. They grow because you master the fundamentals and apply them with consistency. The wealthy understand that brilliance is not found in endless complication, but in the faithful execution of simple principles over time. Here's the practical step you can take. Write down 3 wealth principles that you will commit to for the next decade. Not 300, not 30, just 3. Maybe you decide you'll always pay yourself first. You'll only invest in appreciating or cash flowing assets. And you'll live below your means no matter how much you earn. Once you decide on those guiding principles, the key is to stick to them. Don't allow distraction, greed, or fear to pull you off course. Wealth isn't built by chasing every new wave. It's built by riding the same steady tide over time. When you embrace simplicity, life becomes clearer. You stop comparing yourself to every new fad or trend. You stop being overwhelmed by financial noise. And you start to see progress, slow, steady, compounding progress that builds into something extraordinary. The magic of wealth lies not in complication, but in clarity, and clarity comes from keeping it simple. The real power is not in knowing everything, but in doing the few right things consistently, because simplicity compounds and creates a fortune. Most people think that wealth must be complicated, that only those with advanced formulas, insider knowledge, or secret strategies can achieve it. But wealth is not hidden in confusion, it's hidden in clarity. Complexity creates hesitation, and hesitation kills progress. Simplicity, on the other hand, compounds. The truth is, financial success is not about doing 1,000 things once, but about doing a few things thousands of times. The marketplace doesn't reward how many complicated theories you know. It rewards how consistently you apply timeless principles. I remember when I was younger, I thought wealth was for the gifted. I assumed that millionaires had some mysterious equation the rest of us didn't. But over the years, I discovered something surprising. The wealthy live by very simple disciplines, repeated faithfully. They save before they spend. They invest in things that grow. They avoid unnecessary debt. They stay patient long enough to let compounding do its work. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just simple habits, guarded and repeated over a lifetime. The strategy is straightforward. Stop chasing distractions and start mastering the fundamentals. Every day there will be a new opportunity, a new trend, or a new shortcut, promising fast wealth. But if you chase them all, you'll spend your life running in circles. Instead, pick the principles that work, pay yourself first, invest regularly, build assets, live below your means, and give them time to mature. Simple is powerful because simple is sustainable. When you make wealth complicated, you increase the chances you'll quit. When you keep it simple, you increase the odds you'll stay the course. Here's a practical step you can take right now. Write down 3 wealth principles you're willing to follow for the next decade. Just 3. They could be as basic as always invest 20% of my income, never spend more than I earn, and only buy assets that grow or produce cash flow. Once they're written, commit to living by them without compromise. 10 years from now, those 3 decisions, lived out consistently, will have transformed your life far more than any complex financial scheme ever could. The beauty of simplicity is that it frees your mind. You no longer have to question your every move or panic at every change in the economy. Your principles guide you. And when principles guide you, you make steady progress, even when life throws distractions your way. Wealth is not built overnight. It's built by keeping things simple enough to repeat and repeating them long enough to let time and compounding turn them into abundance. The secret isn't doing more, it's doing less, but doing it right, because simplicity is the strategy that compounds into true wealth. So many people think of wealth only as a prize, as if it's simply a reward for hard work or cleverness. But the truth is, wealth is far more than a trophy. It is a responsibility. When money comes into your hands, it carries with it the weight of stewardship. It demands to know, will you guide me or will I guide you? Will you put me to work or will you let me slip away unnoticed? That's why I often say, it's not just about earning money. It's about managing it wisely so it serves your future, your family, and the people who depend on you. There was a time in my life when I thought that the answer to my problems was simply more money. If I could just earn a little extra, everything would fall into place. But I quickly discovered that money in the wrong hands disappears faster than it arrives. Without discipline, without structure, without vision, money can actually magnify problems instead of solving them. But when you treat wealth as a responsibility, when you give it direction, a plan, and a purpose, it grows, it multiplies, and it begins to serve you instead of the other way around. The strategy here is simple. Manage money with intention. Just like a company has a budget, a family must have a plan. A plan tells every dollar where to go. Some to savings, some to investments, some to protection, and some to giving. That's how you balance responsibility with reward. Think of it this way. Savings gives you security. Investments give you growth. Protection shields you from loss. And giving gives you purpose. If you leave out even one of those, your financial house is incomplete. But when you practice them all, you build a foundation that can carry wealth across generations. Here's the practical step. Create a simple wealth plan. Doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, the simpler, the better. Start by writing down what percentage of your income will go to saving, what percentage will go to investing, what percentage will cover protection, like insurance or legal structures, and what percentage will be dedicated to giving. Once you've written it down, commit to it. Let it become your standard, your framework for making financial decisions. Remember, wealth unmanaged is wealth at risk. If you don't assign it a purpose, it will find one on its own, usually in someone else's pocket. But when you take responsibility, when you manage with discipline, you begin to experience freedom. And not just freedom for yourself, but for those who look to you for leadership, for provision, for opportunity. Because in the end, wealth is not just a reward for the work you've done, it's a responsibility for the life you're shaping. And the one who treats wealth as responsibility will always find that wealth becomes the greatest reward of all. As we come to the close of our time together, I want you to pause and really reflect. Wealth is not just about numbers in a bank account. It is about the life those numbers allow you to build. It is about choices, about freedom, about the legacy you leave behind. And while money itself is important, it is only one part of the bigger picture. What truly matters is who you become in the process of building it, the discipline you develop, the wisdom you acquire, and the responsibility you learn to carry. The difference between those who live paycheck to paycheck and those who live in freedom is not luck. It is philosophy. One person sees money as something to be spent, while another sees it as something to be grown. One person waits for opportunity, while another creates it. One person makes excuses, while another builds assets. That's the dividing line. And the beauty of it is this: the choice belongs entirely to you. You don't have to accept the patterns of your past or the limitations of your environment. You can decide, here and now, to rewrite your financial story. But making the decision is only the first step. After that comes discipline, and discipline is where fortunes are made. Discipline to save when it would be easier to spend. Discipline to invest when it feels risky. Discipline to study when it feels tedious. Discipline to keep going when the results are slow to show. Most people quit long before they ever see the fruit of their labor. Don't let that be you. Remember, wealth is not built in a single moment. It is the result of consistent effort applied over time. I can tell you from personal experience, the harvest is worth the planting. The years I spent broke and frustrated taught me that excuses don't pay bills, and they certainly don't build freedom. But when I began to practice small, steady disciplines, saving a portion of every paycheck, reading books instead of watching television, spending time with people who thought bigger than me, my life began to change. Slowly at first, but surely, and over time, the little things compounded into extraordinary results. So here is my call to you. Don't just let these words inspire you. Let them move you. Decide today to put them into practice. Write down your excuses and replace them with commitments. Create a plan for your money. Start building an asset, no matter how small. Invest in yourself through books, courses, or mentors. Replace one draining habit with one productive habit. Take one step, however small, toward financial independence. Because if you don't begin now, then when? You have the opportunity to change not just your life, but the lives of everyone connected to you. Build assets, not excuses. Live rich, not just in money, but in freedom, impact, and legacy. That's the path to true financial freedom. And it begins with your decision today.